Well, here we are, 9 years after the first Hunger Games movie hit the cinemas, with another Hunger Games film. It is the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and while people who usually only watch movies, and there's nothing bad about it, expect a continuation of the story, I have to disappoint you. It is a prequel set 64 years before the first film, which is logical as the latest book of Suzanne Collins is in fact this prequel. We will be learning about Coriolanus Snow, played by Tom Blythe, and his early years when graduating from the academy. For the first time, he is going to become a mentor and got assigned a tribute from District 12. Sounds very familiar until here. The female tribute is Lucy Gray, played by Rachel Zegler. The film opens up with a small recap of the trouble the citizens from the capital of Panem have. The first rebellion is just over, people scavenging the streets, and in the next scene we see the 18-year-old Snow clearly being malnourished as the family lost everything during the rebellion. We also meet the beautiful Tigress, played by Hunter Schafer, who sadly seems to be only included for the I know her moments. She's portraying what she can do best. She's styling, helping Snow to be dressed correctly for his big day at the academy. You will also find other familiar faces such as Viola Davis as Dr. Gall. You might recognize her from some DC works playing as Amanda Waller. We have Bern Gorman, who played in Torchwood or Pacific Rim, and Peter Dinklage, who's mostly known for Game of Thrones. Apart from a few exceptions, I would say we have a solid cast here and a good basis to work with. To emphasize on the early days of Panem, we're presented with an atom punk or retrofuturistic style of technology and society. As always, tributes are all put into arena. This time it is just a small arena in the capital because everything is at its beginning, but still sounds like the story of the other films, I guess. A bit of a repetition. And that is where we come to the point. This film should have stayed a book. While the backstory of a figure like Coriolanus Snow could be very interesting to read, the movie is a very tedious and slow to watch. The interesting parts are in fact acts 1 and 2 of the film, seeing Snow in his role as a mentor and how the Hunger Games were performed in their early years. Interesting to see how society, marketing, and the entire show is trying to develop to keep the capital actually interested. Overall, this is the story I want to hear. How has Panem developed like we know it? What happened? Sadly, this is coming very short, but to defend the film at this point, they are sticking very much to what the book is trying to tell us. While Tom Blythe might not be the worst choice of an actor, I don't buy he should be portraying an 18-year-old Snow. Just to compare, Tom Blythe is 20 years old. It just doesn't match, and sadly you see it. Peter Dinklage was a big and somewhat annoying disappointment to me. While he was an excellent villain for Snow and his family, his role was constantly shifting between important, as the inventor of the Hunger Games, and a drug and alcohol addicted side character. The film could not decide what to do with Peter Dinklage. Obviously, no one gives a shit in Panem when you take your shots during an assembly at the academy just before you give a speech to the students. Viola Davis was a good choice as Dr. Gold to me. I did totally buy from her the psychopathic scientist trying to find new ways to murder these children in the arena in a horrible way. And I say that as someone who didn't like her role as Amanda Waller in DC. The main characters got me confused. The interaction between Lucy Gray and Snow was mildly speaking meaningless in the film. I never really got if they were attracted to each other, just playing, just surviving. It was a mix of everything, but nothing felt very real. Rachel Zegler sadly had only one single face expression: angry. I would be angry when being picked as a tribute, but being back home and survive, I would be more than happy, but she is not showing it. I thought I was watching a dead cat. From the feeling, the third act of the film was probably the longest one. We see Coriolanus Snow during his service as a peacekeeper, and surprise, surprise, he wants to be stationed in District 12, where his love Lucy Gray is, of course. How it is portrayed in the film, the entire story around the peacekeepers are not giving much of value though. A lot of party, a lot of walking, a lot of talking, a lot of staring at each other, and some executions at the hanging tree. However, we do learn a few facts. Canada still seems to exist, so if you have trouble, just blame it on Canada. Lucy Gray wrote the Hanging Tree song, or it seems like this, and it is played over and over again. I was about to scream. And we learned Katniss is nothing more than a swamp potato for some reason. And even though Lucy Gray said earlier in the film she would only sing if she has a message to tell, she seems to be doing music every evening in District 12, of course with an angry face. If you made it until here, thank you very much for sticking around. Now you will ask yourself, wait a moment, if Coriolanus Snow was in District 12 and knew all about this, experienced the secrets of these rebels, how does the main story of the Hunger Games film actually come to be? He could have ended everything at the just slightest sign of rebellion, right? I don't know. This is the problem with making a prequel to an established story. You're very likely to run into heavy continuity problems. You will most likely alter the story without even wanting to. Also, I have my trouble of this being 64 years before the Hunger Games, meaning Snow was 82 years old in the original story, so he aged very well. But the characters such as Tigress would be 85 plus years old.
It's been 84 years.
And she really does not look like 85 years, at least in the original The Hunger Games movies. To me, all this just doesn't really add up. We're talking about a society which has been plagued by war, children being malnourished, which usually means they will be underdeveloped and sadly have a short lifespan. Sure, Tigress had a lot of plastic surgery done by the time of Mockingjay, so maybe it does add up? I don't know. The movie is around 2 hours and 37 minutes long, and oh boy, this were a long 2 hours and 37 minutes. I'm not an expert in cinematography, I'm only a fan of the Hunger Games books, and as a fan I must say learning about Snow's early years, like in a biography, is interesting, but not in the movie of over 2.5 hours. The movie could have given us more insight about Panem and the capital, cut back a lot of the emptiness. Maybe this format could also be better as a TV series on a streaming platform, where the story has room to breathe. Not every story you want to tell is suited for the big screen. The main problem is nothing is in danger. The film tries to bait us several times with Snow being in danger of maybe being executed by the peacekeepers, for example, locked away forever, or whatever is going to happen to him. But they can bait us as much as they like. We know that Snow will survive and is going to become a dickhead. This is the problem with prequels. We also know that Lucy Gray is surviving the 10th Hunger Games, as she is the female lead in this film, and Hollywood would nowadays not kill off a female lead character in the first half. So what is the point of trying to create drama where no drama exists? They can't really build up tension, and if most of the characters are so unlikable, you cannot feel for them anyway. I have very mixed emotions about this film. I loved half of it, a quarter I disliked mildly, and another quarter I just hated. I don't know. If you have seen this movie, what do you think? Drop a comment. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.